Hey artist, Miss Maury here, broadcasting from the Greenfield Art Room to tell you the next step that you should take for our beautiful symmetrical cicada drawing that we started last week. As you guys know, I'm low-key obsessed with the cicada. I still haven't found any actual cicadas yet, but I have found a few mysterious little sandy holes popping up in my yard, and I am not sure if those are evidence of the cicadas coming up, but I am excited. I've got my ears and my eyes peeled. I hope you do too. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the cicada's role in art history to prove to you that these little cicadas have been going through their life cycle, going underground for 17 years and then popping back up for just absolute centuries. No matter what your ancestry is, there's probably evidence of cicadas in the art that your ancestors have made. For example, take this beautiful Chinese fan, for example. I was looking up, I just did a cicada search on anything from art history, and if you look really carefully here, if you follow my arrow, this little guy is a depiction of a cicada up some kind of bamboo-like tree. This work of art is from, I would say, the 5th century. It's very, very old. And in China, the role of the cicada, it became symbolic. All right, so people don't put cicadas necessarily in their artwork because they're so beautiful. They are, but they're kind of like a marker of time. Many people think of cicadas as a marker of summer starting. So hearing that sound before people had really intricate calendars and before people had iPhones to tell them the official start of summer, the sound of the cicada would be one of those natural kind of alarm clocks. And so the cicadas started to take on the symbolism of some kind of big issues. Rebirth, oftentimes butterflies and insects with wings, also because of the way that their life cycle changes from eggs to pupae to actual, developing into a butterfly. Cicadas tend to represent rebirth and transformation because their bodies kind of change so much. It's a beautiful illustration of change. Another little bit that I was reading is there was one Chinese philosopher who believed that political people who are in charge, the emperors and the high noblemen of the Chinese government, should behave more like cicadas, like thinking of the cicadas as a very dignified creature that eats a very pure diet. I mean, cicadas, even though kids like you think that cicadas feast on kids, no, cicadas eat morning dew. Isn't that sweet? And they cleanse the soil, little microbes in the soil, and they stay way up high and they're always looking out vigilantly with their sharp eyes from the treetops. So I thought that was kind of cool that people were saying political leaders should be more like cicadas. Very interesting. If we pop over to the ancient Greeks, I discovered a myth that I had never heard about before my cicada research this year. But in ancient Greek mythology, I found this beautiful illustration. She's a modern day illustrator on Etsy. But she introduced me to the story of Unamos, who was an accomplished cithara player. Now, if you don't know what a cithara is, I don't blame you. They're not really in style anymore, but it's this genre right here. It's kind of like a cross between a harp and a guitar. But apparently, Unamos was very much in love with the goddess known as Aphrodite. And he was competing. Aphrodite said, "The person who can play the best song that impresses me most will win my heart." And so Unamos got out his cithara. He's playing, and one of his strings breaks. How embarrassing. And a little cicada, according to the myth, flies down from the tree and lands on Unamos' cithara and does his little thing. It's a beautiful sound of buzz. And Aphrodite was so impressed that she said, you have my heart. I'm in love with you. And so this little cicada came. Cicadas are all about love and falling in love. The cicada came to the aid of Unamos. Pretty cool. And lastly, the last example of cicadas in history. This one's kind of spook city. I'm not even going to fib. But I know you guys are studying the ancient Mayans, and soon you'll be studying maybe the Aztec civilizations of South America. This is so cool. Anthropologists, are scientists who study humankind, and they found in some of the burial remains in ancient Aztec cultural burials, underneath the tongues of the people who were buried, they found these beautifully, intricately carved jade stones. And there's a depiction of one here on your screen. And they were placed underneath the dead people's tongues because, like I told you, the cicada was seen as a symbol of rebirth. And that this symbol underneath the tongue was meant as good luck to live again and start a new life. So I'm very intrigued with this idea that cicadas represent transformation. And of course, you guys know I'm always thinking about you all. And I'm thinking about how many of you are transitioning from children into kind of grown-ups. You're like, moving into your teenage years. And I'm thinking about how well you guys have done this year with transitioning from traditional school to virtual learning. And I thought it would be really cool to finish these cicada drawings, not just straightforward with ink, but with something a little bit more symbolic, a little more conceptual. And so I came up with this idea. Here's your prompt. Okay, I'm going to show you guys how to finish your work, but this is going to be your challenge. I wrote it out for you. On the last slide, it says, what does change and rebirth and transformation mean for you as a sixth grader here at the Albert M. Greenfield School in the year 2021? So directions. As we work to design the wing segments of our symmetrical cicadas, I want you to think about what kind of symbolic designs you can hide within each section. So you're going to have to be kind of like stealth and cryptic. And sometimes the symbolic meaning might be evident to those in your audience who are looking at your work, and sometimes it might just have meaning for you. We're going to use the transfer rubbing or window technique to copy the sketches that we made last week to get the right side that we drew together with the snake artist guy from Australia. I'm going to show you a really easy way to pop this design over onto this side of the paper. And then I'm going to show you my teacher example and talk about some of the symbolism I added. Okay, so get your drawing from last week. And the first thing I want you to do is make sure your lines that we created as we drew together last week have a pretty healthy amount of graphite from your pencil on there. So if you really did just sketch very lightly, put a bit more graphite down, just so we darken them up a little bit. All right, and then what you're going to do is you're going to fold your paper in half, and you're going to take something that's like kind of strong and plastic. I like to use these Mr. Sketch markers, but you can also use the handles of a scissor, anything you have at your house that's not going to break. Popsicle stick is what we usually use in the art room, but I'm guessing you guys might not have a popsicle stick right at hand. And you're just going to press down. I'm applying pressure. Some of you without the amazing muscular strength that I have might have to stand up to do this. But you're going to rub over all the drawings we did last Tuesday when we were together. And what that's going to do is that's going to make that graphite, that pencil lead, pop over to this side. Ah, look at that. So easy. Because I can never draw things perfectly with perfect symmetry by hand. I always have to do some kind of method like this. If you hate that idea of pushing with the marker, you could also hold your artwork up to a window where you can see through to the other side. I think that's what my Australian friend did in his video. All right, once you have that basic, and just put a few antennae up there, that basic form, now you need to start thinking a little bit more conceptually. Here's my finished artwork. I added color to mine, but you can keep this black and white if you want. And this may just seem like a straightforward cicada depiction, but if you look carefully, I was thinking about this past year and how I've felt so much better mentally now that I've come back to school and are seeing my people again, my fellow teachers, my students. And so if you look in the top segment of this wing, can you see that I hid the shape of a face mask in there in my broken wing segments. If you go down to this level, I intertwined some beautiful shapes of cherry blossoms and cherry vines, just sneaking back behind there. And then this one's a little more cryptic. At the bottom, I was thinking about how much I love the sound of kids playing on the playground, laughing and being with each other. And so can you think really on your toes, what part of our playground does this 8-sided shape represent? That's right, our Gaga pit. So together, this image of the cicada, for me, represents the transformation I went through as a teacher getting through this year and then the return back to the classroom. So thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so that's what I would like you to work on today. When you're finished, you can upload this to the assignment. I'm really excited to see what kind of symbols you hide in there. Hopefully, I can decode them and try to figure out what's on your mind. We aren't going to work on this project again in class. I'd like you to finish it today. So happy drawing, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye, artists.